Well, good morning. Welcome to Christ Table. My name is Kevin Young. So glad that you are here with us today.
Yeah, my name is Sally Young, and we're super thankful you decided to tune in on this late October Sunday.
Yeah, it's rushing past us towards Halloween, and I don't know where you are, but where we live here in Birmingham, Alabama, the signs of fall are right outside of our windows every day. It's here.
Yeah, it's wonderful, and that's why our question of the day today is about what is your favorite fall color? Because we talk about fall as just kind of a one size fits all, haha, but it's really not. There's so many different variations in colors. So, what's your favorite fall color?
Yeah. I was trying to think. Whenever you first asked the question, my first thought was, I don't know if my dad will be on this morning, and but he's kind of a sarcasm, cynical guy, and I think green was probably his favorite color because it meant that the leaves weren't falling, which meant that he did not have to clean all of that up. For me, I think orange is actually my favorite. Whenever the sunlight in the evening hits the trees and that orange, and it looks just like fire, I love that. That to me is the most beautiful. What about you?
Yeah, mine is yellow. Mine's yellow for sure, but I love yellow anyway. But seeing those leaves turn that bright, bright yellow, not like the golden delicious apples, but like yellow, yellow. It's absolutely fascinating how nature works. And my seventh grader told me the entire process on the way to school the other day when they were both like, "This is so cool." So learned all about
So now you know all about it,
chlorophyll.
right?
Yep, I know all about it. So, what is y'all's favorite leaf color?
Yeah, let us know what
Put
your
it in
favorite color is. Yeah, so this morning here at Christ Table, we actually have a bit of a different service order today. So just wanted to let you know that little things are a little out of the ordinary. Maggie's going to still be with us. We're still going to do communion today. We'll still do prayer, but the order of things is going to be a little bit different today. And you may like it, you may not like it. I don't know. Feel free to let us know. But sometimes it's fun to just kind of switch things up, right?
Yeah, just always trying new things and seeing, people's attention spans too. And but all the elements are still there, just in a different way around it. So we're glad you joined in with us. If this is your first time or you've been here the whole time, we're super grateful you're a part and just a part of our ministry. So
Yeah, and one more thing that we want to make sure that you know about, we have spiritual resource boxes that we can send to you here from Christ Table. We're in the middle of a Bible study. We'd love to have you be a part of that during a week. We send those to our regular givers for absolutely free, but if you would like this box, if you were not able to get in on that, you can still can. All you have to do is go to that URL right there at the bottom of your screen, go.christtable.today/box, and we'll get that off to you.
yeah, we appreciate everybody who gives to our ministry. It's how we do what we do. So you can also go to that website and find a way to give and support us routinely. That would be awesome and wonderful as we continue to do what we feel like God's called us to do.
All right, well, it is time to get into the morning. So we will see you back in just a little bit for prayer, Sal.
All right.
So one of the things that over the last few weeks have been going on here in the Young family is we have been working on finding a permanent house for our family. We've made a move, and we moved during a time of year when all of the stuff on the market had kind of just moved off of the market, and so it's been quite a process. But one of the things that I noticed during that process is that identifying the house that you want to live in is oftentimes um, not just something about finding the house that you like, but it's also about finding the house that you can afford. And one of the things that we noticed is that we had this absolute maximum price for our budget because my wife does an absolutely incredible job on our budgeting. And so we had kind of identified this is what we can spend, and we don't want to really go above that at all because it just wouldn't be great use of our resources. But one of the things that we noticed was that everything that was kind of desirable to live in for a family was above that absolute maximum price. Now that house that's right over there is well above our absolute maximum price, but even the things that were close to that absolute maximum price were nice, but we just couldn't make the decision to do it. And everything that wasn't at our absolute maximum price, everything that was below it, well, just there was a great disparity between the two. And one of the things that I have been thinking about is this idea of there being a great disparity oftentimes between what is and what we think. In this process of trying to identify a house, what we thought reality was going to be was very different from what reality was. And you don't have to be in the housing market to recognize that. That is a truth that happens throughout life as we know it. So over the last few weeks, we have been looking into the 12 apostles, and we've taken a look at several really great apostles. And I want to spend just a moment or two this morning looking at Thomas, who has a word that is oftentimes attached to his name. And I'll give it to you a little bit later, but I don't want to give it to you yet to ruin it. But he has this descriptor that's attached to his name that you may well know him by. So what I want to do this morning is I want to begin by taking a look in John chapter 20. And before we get to this text in John chapter 20, the resurrection has happened. And so, you've had that whole Easter time, Good Friday, death, burial, resurrection, everything has been celebrated. And then we move into this time in kind of the evening. So when it says here in verse 19, that Sunday evening, they're really talking about that Sunday, Easter Sunday, Resurrection Sunday. That Sunday evening, the disciples were meeting behind locked doors. So we celebrate on Easter, but it doesn't seem as though maybe they were actually as celebratory as we are on Easter. And why? Well, because they were afraid of the leaders. They were afraid of probably being accused of stealing the body of Jesus. They were worried that maybe that the same fate that had befallen Jesus, that maybe they would come for other individuals. But suddenly, whenever they are locked behind these closed doors, the text in John tells us that Jesus is standing among them and just kind of says, "Hey, dudes, peace be with you." First of all, you're supposed to be dead. Second of all, you're supposed to be dead. And now you're standing here saying, "Peace be with you." Okay. And as he speaks, though, he convinces them, he shows some evidence that the wounds in his hand and in his side, so that they will believe that he's really Jesus, that this isn't a joke, that they're not being punked. And they were filled with joy whenever they saw the Lord. So these wounds were a telltale sign, evidence that demanded that they recognize that this is a man who had been crucified and that this was Jesus. But we learn something important in that not all of the apostles were there. Obviously, Judas wasn't there, but there was one other apostle who wasn't there. And at this point, we don't really know the reason why this apostle wasn't there. So John goes on to tell us that one of the 12, Thomas, who is nicknamed the twin, was not with the others when Jesus came. And have you ever just been the type of person who you're just, everything seems to happen whenever you're not there? It almost becomes a running joke in the circles oftentimes that you're in, and that you're just not present for whatever reason, that you're just not there. And this kind of feels a little bit like Thomas. And one of the things that you recognize whenever you begin to read the New Testament is that Thomas almost is almost one of these characters that is always kind of something crazy is happening to, like Three Stooges or Laurel and Hardy or one of these other like comic movies where the bad thing always happens to the same individual. This kind of feels like it's Thomas in the story of the Gospels. So whenever they see Thomas, they tell him, "We have seen the Lord." And I can imagine Thomas like rolling his eyes and being like, "Yeah, sure, you've seen Jesus. Just another one of your guys' pranks, right?" But the Greek here, whenever it gives us this, indicates that they were like really trying to convince him of this. Like, "No, Thomas, no. We have actually seen Jesus. Yeah. I'm okay, whatever. You got me." No, no, you're, I know it's unbelievable, but we have actually seen Jesus. And Thomas, it almost feels as though he has been tricked one too many times by, by these guys that he's been hanging out with for the last, 3.5 years. It's like, no, I'm not going to believe it unless I see the nail wounds in his hands and am able to put my fingers into those wounds and place my hand into the side of himself. And so, as adamant as they were that they had seen Jesus, Thomas is equally as adamant that he is not going to believe this prank. And so, the text here and the language here is not just that he will kind of poke or feel that wound there. The word is actually shove. So Thomas says, unless I am able to physically thrust my fingers through the hole in his wrist, and unless I'm able to physically shove my fist into the side, where then I'm not going to believe it. Unless you have physical proof, I'm sorry, guys. I know this has been a tough time. Maybe you actually believe that you've seen this. We've all have been through a very traumatic experience, and I understand group hallucinations, but unless you have physical proof of what you're saying, I can't. This isn't really difficult to understand. We give Thomas a hard time, right? And oftentimes we give other people sometimes a hard time when they don't deserve it, or other people give us a hard time whenever we don't deserve it, and that's tough, right? It's not difficult to understand. Thomas had missed the meeting where Jesus actually showed up. Talk about missing a meeting, right? He had missed the miracle of the resurrection. He had no sense of the significance of what had just happened. Like, we celebrate Easter Sunday and Resurrection Day, and we kind of assume that everybody just was automatically celebratory and understood whenever Jesus rose from the dead. And it wasn't that way. If you read these gospel accounts, there is shock, there is disbelief. There are a lot of people who just hear it, and even hear it from eyewitnesses who they trust, and they're still like, I'm sorry, I can't believe it, I'm done. So Thomas actually, I would say, is wise by not immediately jumping to belief. Can I say that? Can we think about that for just a moment? That maybe Thomas is the smart one here. Sometimes we give Thomas a hard time, right? Why didn't you believe? Jesus is risen. How can you disbelieve these other guys? But I don't think Thomas deserves that. I don't think Thomas deserves what he has been given here for demanding proof, for assurance, for not being willing to immediately jump to a conclusion that isn't just inexplicable or extraordinary, but is impossible. I think we give Thomas a hard time, and I don't think he deserves it. And so we have this standoff here now between reality and perception of reality. But Thomas is really kind of standing in reality, and it's everybody else who's kind of at this point standing in perception of reality. I mean, did they really see what they had saw? But this has to open up wounds in Thomas, right? I mean, Jesus had wounds. He talks about, unless I'm able to shove my fist into these wounds, I'm not going to believe. But imagine the trauma that he has been through, and now realizing that he's alone, leaving from this place. He's broken again over what he has gone through in this crucifixion of his leader, his mentor, a person whom he loved, Jesus, who he believed in. He's doubtful that this has happened, and now he's alone in a skepticism. At least a few hours ago, everybody was together on this, but now not. Because the resolution, though, to his strong will comes in the next verse, we actually easily forget that there is a pause in time between the verse that we just read and this next verse right here. And I think that, we have to recognize that, some of us are pessimists, some of us are optimists. But I think what's happening here is that Thomas is a realist. Thomas looks at the world and he just says, okay, I'm going to be going to be a realist about what's going on here. And when we get to this next place here, what we see is that there is, and in fact, I'm just going to pull this verse down for just a second. What we see here is that Thomas spends 8 days wondering. We spend 8 days here with Thomas before he gets a resolution to this. I can't imagine spending 8 days as Thomas thinking that I was alone, that nobody was there with me, that all of the other apostles and disciples were away from me, that we just weren't on the same page. And I think that this is a little bit of the reason why Thomas has been given this idea of doubting Thomas. And I don't think that's fair, because I think that Thomas was a realist, that Thomas was honest, and then it's unfair to say just because he wasn't immediately on this bandwagon with all of the others without any proof that he's doubting Thomas. There are a couple of places in Scripture that I want to go to before we actually get to that, and so I want to put this back up. There's this moment whenever Jesus is still around and together, where Jesus says, in John chapter 14, I'm going to prepare a place for you, and when everything is ready, I'm going to come and I'm going to get you so that everybody will be able to be with me where I'm going, and you know where I'm going. And you know, Jesus is in the middle of the sermon, and I'm going to a place, I'm going to prepare it for you. You know that you're going to be with me where I'm going, and you know the way to where I'm going. And Thomas, actually, I love him. From kind of the back, you see this hand go up, and Jesus is like, really? Right here in the middle, Thomas, you're going to just, this is like someone's over here recording this because this is really good. This is A material. This is definitely going to make it in the gospel. And okay, go ahead, John. Just go ahead and interrupt. Okay, yeah, it's all right. Just come on, Thomas. Jesus, we don't know, Lord. We know you've just said that we know that you know where we're going, and we don't know. We have absolutely no idea where we're going. So how can we know the way? I think that all the other disciples probably, rather than getting annoyed, were probably like, none of us had any idea. Thanks, Thomas. Nobody wants to be the one to interrupt and ask Jesus this question, but Thomas was the one who's always the one who's going to do it, right? He's the literal thinker. He's the one who's asking all of the questions. He's a realist. He's like, I don't know. It's not good or bad. It's not optimist or pessimist. There needs to be a little bit more information here. And it's not as though Thomas is spiritually dull either. This isn't what's going on with Thomas. He's not like disconnected spiritually from what's going on, or not with everyone else. Jesus, in this other place, has suggested going back to Jerusalem to help Lazarus. And the disciples are saying, you're crazy, Jesus. We're not going back to Jerusalem. It is a hotbed of trouble there. There is danger, very real danger for us going back to Jerusalem. And so all the other disciples are, what you're suggesting, Jesus, is extremely dangerous. And we have this moment where Thomas, who's nicknamed the twin, said to his fellow disciples, no, let's go. Let's die with Jesus. There's something important here that we're doing. And if this is the call to start this revolution through our deaths, then so be it. That's not somebody who's not all in. That's not somebody who's spiritually dull. That's not somebody who's doubting what's going on here. It's just not. So I hope that you're seeing this kind of picture forming here, that sometimes what we think reality is not what reality really is, because what we thought reality was with Thomas is not what reality really is with Thomas. And so maybe there are other things in our life and other things in our understanding of Christianity where what we believe is real and what we've seen and thought is not necessarily where things are. This guy isn't an immobilized doubter at all. He's passionate, he's strong, he's facing death, he's willing to stand up for Jesus. And so then we get back to this point where 8 days later, 8 days after Resurrection Sunday, the disciples are together again, and this time Thomas was with them. And you gotta believe that they've been having this conversation probably for the last 8 days. It's like, I don't know where he is. I don't know why it's been 8 days since we've seen him, but it happened, I promise you. And 8 days later, they're still it happened, Thomas. And 8 days later, Thomas is like, I don't know. It's been 8 days. Don't you think he should have shown up by now? Don't you think he would have like come by to say, how you guys doing? Hey, good to see you again. Like, where did Jesus go? So 8 days later, the disciples are together again. And this time Thomas is with them and the doors were locked. So apparently there's still some fear there. But suddenly, as before, Jesus was standing among them. It's like, 8 days, what did you possibly have to do, Jesus? And doesn't that seem just like God, right? You are in need and God is nowhere to be found. And then like 8 days after you needed God, then there he finally is. And okay, if I've offended you, I'm sorry. But if you've ever read Job or Habakkuk or Lamentations or any of these books, you know that sometimes spiritually we say sometimes God doesn't work on our timetable. The non-spiritual way to say that is sometimes God is just miserably late. That makes you and I just miserable. And why? I don't know. I hope it's not because Jesus is or God is toying with us. I don't want to believe that. I want to believe the spiritual thing. And I do think that that's true. And I think there's lots of biblical evidence there to support that. But at the end of the day, Jesus really, and you waited 8 days. You could have dropped by to Thomas. I think just popped in. You know, you've got that resurrection body, but he didn't. And so maybe there was an important reason for Thomas. But at this point, all that there is in the room is just awkwardness, right? Thomas has given Jesus an ultimatum: unless I can put my fist clean through, shove it in there, I'm not going to believe. And now Jesus is there with Thomas and he says, peace be with you. I don't think there was probably much peace there, especially in Thomas, because now Thomas is feeling a little awkward. And then he looks right at Thomas and he says, hey, go ahead, shove your finger in here and look at my hands. Shove your finger. I can use it's the same language. Shove your finger in here. Just go ahead, Thomas. Go ahead and just get as much in there as you can. Put your hand in the wound in my side. And I don't know, but I imagine Jesus saying this with a smile or a chuckle, knowing exactly what had gone on and what Thomas has said. And it's like, all right, I'm calling your bluff here. So it's, likely that whenever Thomas demanded proof that he ever expected that he would actually get it, I think is probably unlikely. And it's like, okay, now what? What am I going to do here? And Jesus is like, come on, Thomas, don't be faithless anymore. Believe. Come on, what more do you need to see, man? And seeing sometimes isn't enough, right? I can show you everything. I can show you the world. This is you problem, Thomas. At the end of the day, you've got to figure this out. Stop doubting and believe. And it's strong. It's kind of a verbal slap upside the head. Maybe Thomas had started down the road to unbelief, or maybe Jesus was concerned that Thomas was about to start the road to unbelief. This word that's used here is a word that's used other places in the Bible for unbelievers. And so it may well be that Thomas was kind of moving in that direction. But Jesus says, Thomas, believe. And then he says, my Lord and my God. And I think it's fascinating that Thomas doesn't say this because the proof is there, because he said that the only proof that would be able to was to physically be able to interact with Jesus. And that's fair. But Thomas comes to a point where he is able to say, my Lord and my God, without having done that. And Thomas expresses his faith here in a way that no other disciple on record has expressed faith, at least up until this point. What Thomas says here, my Lord and my God, is something that we don't have a record of any of the apostles saying at this point. And so Thomas's faith is strong. And Thomas had some moments where he had some very real and legitimate questions. Is that unbelief? I don't think so. I think what Jesus is saying here is that, Thomas, unless you find the answers to your questions, you can't just sit on them, or else you're going to find yourself heading towards unbelief at the end of the day. And so Thomas Thomas makes a decision here, my Lord and my God. So I think that history owes Thomas an apology for thinking of him as a pathetic doubter, as a pessimist. A lot of the commentaries, if you read them about Thomas, will say things like that he was downright obstinate, that his stupidity was astonishing and monstrous, that he was proud and insulting towards Christ. And I don't see this at all in Thomas in this moment or in any other moments. And I think that there is this idea that you cannot have doubt in your journey of faith. Alfred Tennyson said this, that there is more faith in honest doubt than there is in half the creeds. And sometimes that is kind of abrasive to uber Christian type people, to think of doubt as being an asset to people who are strong in the faith, and that maybe honest doubt is better even than some of the strongest doctrinal language in some of our creeds. Why do you think that may be? Well, I think that is because doubt does not mean that faith is absent. Faith and doubt are not mutually exclusive. Faith and doubt can exist, can coexist even. Doubt does not mean that there is no faith. Over the years, in looking at houses in order to buy, one of the things that we notice in looking at houses oftentimes is that there are some cracks in places and walls or foundations. Over this journey, we've seen some cracks in some places. And there are two reasons for cracks. One of them is settling that is healthy, and the other is the foundations are crumbling. Some cracks in the foundation enable there to be a stronger foundation in the end. They allow the house to settle into the ground in which it is placed firmly. Other cracks are disastrous if you let them go. Doubt is not the opposite of faith. Certainty is the opposite of faith. Certainty and doubt are at odds. Doubt is positive. Certainty is dangerous. Faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of what not seen. The Bible never tells us to be certain of things. The Bible tells us, just as Jesus did here to Thomas, yes, you may have some doubt or some questions or some concerns, and that's okay, as long as you end up on the side of faith. Hebrews chapter 11, verse 1, faith makes sure of what we hope for and gives us proof of what we cannot see. In times of struggle, you don't need certainty. In times of struggle and wrestling with questions, what you need is faith, and faith coexists beautifully with doubt. Maggie?
Your eyes see me when I am hidden, and your eyes see me when I'm brokenhearted, and your eyes see me when I am hidden, and your eyes see me. Your eyes see me when I am heavy, and your eyes see me when I cannot lift my head, and your eyes see me when I am heavy, and your eyes see me. When I call to you, Lord, you answer me. You answer me when I call escape your love. We will never see the end. We will never see the end of your goodness. We will never see the end. We will never see the end of your goodness. Will we pass through the fire? Will we pass through the flood? You will be with us. Will we walk through the valley, through the darkest of night? Your love will be our light. When we are in plenty or we are in want, you will always be enough. And we will never see the end. We will never see the end of your goodness. And we will never see the end. We will never see the end of your goodness. In our darkest hours, on our hardest days, we do not have to be afraid. You will never leave, you will not forsake the promises that you have made. And we can say that we will never see the end. We will never see the end of your goodness. And we will never see the end. We will never see the end of your goodness. Of your goodness.
Well, I told you it was going to be a little bit of the out of the ordinary routine this morning. So welcome back. Thank you, Maggie, for being here with us. And Sally, good to see you again. And you are frozen. So yeah, sorry about that. Let me see if I can get you back here. So what we're going to do is see if we can get Sally back. And if not, what we're going to do is take a moment to pray, because we believe that prayer is super important here at Christ Table. And one of the things that we try to do here is try to pray for everybody who is submitting prayer requests. And if you have a praise, we'd love to have that as well. Good to have you back, Sal. I was just going on without you.
It's fine.
Yeah. So so I was just saying that prayer requests, you can go ahead and submit those prayer requests, and if they are too long or too personal, feel free to just put unspoken or pray for me, or you can send it to us in a private message, and those do get prayed for. And at the end of our time praying, we will put up the Lord's Prayer, and would love to have you pray the Lord's Prayer with us aloud. And then after that, we'll go straight into communion. So yeah.
Yeah, it's so cool to get to have time to pray together, especially after hearing, Kevin's message and Maggie's music gives us a little moment. So feel free to put your prayer request in there, and know, like I say every week, if you see somebody's to jump in and be a part, reach out to somebody and let them know you're praying for them. Community is important. So let's take a quick moment to pray. Dear God, thank you so much for today, and thank you for a Sunday to stop and breathe and have a moment. And God, I know my brain is swirling around in the world. There's so much more than we've ever or ever walked through in a long time. And so, God, we need you. I don't even know the right words to pray. I don't even know the right things to ask, but I know you um, are God of love, and you can somehow handle all this. So, God, we ask that you're with us in the details of our daily lives, the things that are still going on in our lives, the health, the illness, the job change, the life change, the even some of us going through, catastrophic loss, some of us going through incredible blessing and wonderful times that we thank you for, God. There's just so much in our complexities of our life, in the big picture and then just in the tiny picture that we need you a part of, that we need you to walk with, that we need you to give us insight into or wisdom. God, we just need you. We need you to walk with us step by step, day by day, and somehow show us.
And so, Lord, we together pray the words of the prayer that you've given to us. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever. Amen. So before we go this morning, I would like to participate in communion with you. So you can participate no matter where you are on your spiritual journey. We believe that the table of Jesus is open, and if Judas and Thomas are able to sit at that table, then you and I are able to sit at the table of Jesus as well. And whatever you have alongside of you to take communion with will be great. I have a bun that we'll use for communion here today, and a cup of water. But if you have coffee, orange juice, milk, grape juice, that's fine. If you have bread, muffins, pizza, last night's dinner, or a mint or something, that will work as well, just so that you are able to tangibly put something in your hands and put something in your body as a reminder to you of Jesus' love for you, as well as a reminder that you are not alone. And there is something magical, something that is mysterious, something that is transformational that happens as part of this meal. And so I would love to just share this moment with you. The text of scripture tells us that on the night that Jesus was betrayed and tortured and ultimately executed, that he shared a meal with his friends. And at that meal, he took some bread from the table and broke it, and he gave it to his disciples. And he said, "Take and eat this, for this is my body, which is given for you. As often as you eat this, I want you to remember me." And so with this, we remember Jesus and his love and his hope and his care and the peace that he brings, and the fact that he is patient. This do in remembrance of me. And in this moment, may you feel the power and the love of Jesus and of others. The text tells us that at the end of the meal, Jesus took the cup that was on the table and he passed it around to all of his disciples. He said, "Drink all of this. For this cup is a new agreement, a new covenant between God and between you for the forgiveness of sins. As often as you drink this, do so and remember me," or remember forgiveness. And so in this moment, may you allow yourself to be forgiven. May you know that God has forgiven you. May you forgive yourself. And then may I forgive other people as we have been forgiven, in remembrance of him. And may you feel that you have been forgiven in this moment. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. May God's face radiate with joy because of you and bring you peace. And may the peace of Jesus Christ go with you wherever he may send you. May it guide you through the wilderness. May it protect you through the storms. May he bring you home rejoicing at all the wonders that he has shown you. And may he bring you home rejoicing once again soon into our doors. Well, it has been good to be with you this morning. I am looking forward to being with you tomorrow as we continue on in our Bible study. As we work through the book, we're in chapter 3. But until that time, may you have a blessed Sunday. God bless.
Lift up my soul.